Good afternoon and welcome to ThinkTech Asia. It's Tuesday, January 6, 2015, the first Tuesday of the new year. I know regular viewers of this program are tuning in expecting to see a familiar face and host Dr. Hong Xiang. Hong is taking hiatus from her hosting duties and she's asked me to fill in for her for several episodes, and so I'm very pleased to do so. My name is Keith Bettinger and I'm a lecturer in geography at both Kapiolani Community College and Leeward Community College. I also have an active research program addressing issues of conservation and governance in Southeast Asia, as well as adaptation to climate change in urban settings in the Asia-Pacific region. I earned my PhD from the Department of Geography at the University of Hawaii in May of 2014, and so for more than a decade, I've been working on issues related to East and Southeast Asia. I've worked and or conducted research in Japan and Malaysia, Indonesia, Cambodia, and Bangladesh, and I'm really honored to have been asked to host this program. So starting today, we're going to be innovating a little bit with the format. Each week, we're going to have a short news summary touching on current topics in South, Southeast, Central, and East Asia. And the idea here is to briefly highlight some important stories that might not get the attention they deserve in the mainstream media. We're also going to be starting a community calendar featuring events in Hawaii with an Asian theme. So this calendar will include cultural performances and lectures and workshops and other events of interest. So if you have any events that you'd like to publicize, I'd warmly invite you to contact me at keiththinktech@gmail.com. That's keiththinktech@gmail.com. Or you can also reach me at this email address with any comments about the show. And you can follow me on Twitter at KCC Geography. So we'll be having the interview segment for our program after the news summary. And lastly, we're going to close each program, starting with today, with a new feature called the Cultural Corner, where we'll highlight a performance or an artist from Asia. So we hope that you enjoy the program innovations, and so without further ado, let's get on with today's program. And our topic for today is Joko Widodo, commonly referred to as Jokowi, who last year was elected president of Indonesia, the world's largest Muslim country and the third largest democracy overall. This is quite a significant event, both inside and outside Indonesia, for a number of reasons, which we'll be exploring later on. My guest today is Dr. Wilmar Salim, professor of urban planning at the Institute of Technology in Bandung, Indonesia. Dr. Salim is an expert on Indonesian politics and will provide some fascinating insights into the Jokowi phenomenon. He'll be joining me in just a few minutes, but first let's have our news summary. So South Asia, first of all. In South Asia, the border tensions increased between India and Pakistan as border guards exchanged gunfire on the disputed border between Jammu and Kashmir. 2 people were reported killed and at least 1 other was wounded. The 2 sides blame one another for breaking the ceasefire. Occasional cross-border exchanges have occurred for years, but in recent months, these incidents have intensified and thousands living in villages near the border have been forced to flee. Both India and Pakistan claim the disputed region of Kashmir, and over the decades, the 2 nuclear powers have fought several wars over the region. Next, in Southeast Asia, as you no doubt know, the news has been dominated and continues to revolve around the crash of Air Asia flight QZ8501. Now, the crash is the 3rd involving a Malaysian airliner in less than a year and has highlighted some concerns regarding air travel in Southeast Asia, where growing economies are fueling demand for air travel. Over the past 5 years, the number of passengers carried annually in the Asia-Pacific region has increased by 2/3 to more than 1 billion. And we have a graphic here that shows air traffic, the number of airplanes in the skies at any given moment in Asia. Currently, there are 1,600 aircraft operating in Southeast Asia alone, with more than 1,000 aircraft on order. So the region doesn't have enough training programs to produce a number of pilots that it needs, according to industry analysts, which is adding to intense competition between airlines for qualified pilots. Boeing projects that the Asia-Pacific region will need 216,000 new pilots in the next 20 years, more than any other region in the world, as the region's share of global passenger traffic increases from 31% to 42%. Moreover, the high volume of flights in Southeast Asia has increased pressure on traffic control infrastructure and air traffic control infrastructure as pilots complain that it is not unusual in the region for requests to increase altitude to avoid bad weather to be rejected due to the number of other planes in the air. Lastly, in East Asia news, the election drama continues in Hong Kong, as the city's government vowed to move forward with elections that sparked massive student-led demonstrations last year. The city's chief executive, Leung Chong-ying, announced that there would be public consultations regarding the conduct of the election, but reiterated that the election would have to follow the Basic Law, which is a framework that established Hong Kong's status as a special administrative region under Chinese sovereignty. Protests focused on the issue of choosing Leung Chun-ying's successor. According to Beijing, the Basic Law holds that the chief executive is chosen by a committee of high party officials in Beijing, whereas the protesters demanded greater say in the process, insisting that the Basic Law guarantees elections via universal suffrage. In August, the central government released a proposal that would allow the public to vote on the city's administrator, but would allow the central government at the same time to choose the candidates. This sparked weeks of protests. So, now on to our interview segment. Today, we're discussing the recent election of Joko Widodo as president of Indonesia. In terms of population, the 17,000 island archipelago nation of Indonesia is the fourth largest country on the planet. It is also the third largest democracy, behind only India and the United States. On top of that, the country is the largest Muslim country on the planet, with between 80 and 90% of the country's 250 million people adhering to Islam. Last year, Indonesia elected a new president, a former furniture salesman named Joko Widodo. Jokowi, as he's known, has had a meteoric rise to power. Just 3 years ago, he was mayor of Solo, a medium-sized city in the central part of Indonesia's most populous island of Java. His progressive policies and anti-corruption stance gained him national attention, and he was elected governor of the Jakarta Special Administrative Region. After 2 years as governor of Indonesia, its capital, and the largest city in Southeast Asia, he ran for and was elected president. Jokowi has captured the hearts and imaginations of tens of millions of Indonesians, and he's been hailed internationally as a shining star of good governance. So, I'm pleased to be joined today by Dr. Wilmar Salim, a professor of urban planning at Indonesia's Bandung Institute of Technology, one of the country's most prestigious institutions of higher learning. Dr. Salim is in Honolulu visiting the East-West Center, and so I'm fortunate that he's agreed to spend some time with us today. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for
Wilmar,
having me
thank
here,
you for
Keith.
coming. So let's start with the questions. First question is to set things up, a background question. Indonesia just had a presidential election. So can you start off by telling us a little bit about how Indonesia's electoral system works? For example, how is a president chosen? And who was president before this most recent election?
Okay, well, the general election in Indonesia is held every 5 years, and which consists of two stages of election. We first elect the member of parliament, and then after that, the second is we elect the president. In the past, the citizens only vote for the member of parliament, and then the member of parliament then elect a president. But since 2004, that system has been changed. So now we first elect the member of parliament, and then after that, when a political party or coalition of political parties that acquire 20% of vote are eligible to nominate the president and vice president, in which then the people will elect the president. So in 2004, we have the first time where people elect their own president, and then at that time, General Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono was elected the president.
Right.
And then, so we have the second one is in 2009, and the third one is in 2014, where Joko Widodo is elected as president. So, yeah, this is the current system that we have, which is different with what we used to have.
I see. So, just to clarify, parties that achieve 20% in the parliamentary election.
In the parliamentary election.
So these days, how many in this past election? How many parties were eligible to?
Well, yeah, the number of parties have gone down. We used to have almost 40 political parties.
Wow.
And it's so difficult to get that what do you call the threshold of 20%. And then, so what happened during the election in 2004 and 2009, we have so many political parties. Then the election law was changed, and then set the threshold that only political parties that can get 2.5% of vote may run for the next election.
I see.
So what happened is in 2014 we only have 12 political parties because of that.
Oh, that's fascinating. Well, tgoing to take a break, and
Okay.
we'll be right back to talk about Jokowi, the Jokowi phenomenon, in just a moment. Thank you very much.
Aloha, I'm Kili'i Akina, president of the Grassroots Institute and host on Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii broadcast network. Ehana Kako means let's work together. Think of the sad alternative, let's not work together. Here in Hawaii, with all of our diversity and the richness of the people, it's important for us to come together around issues on the basis of what's right and what's good and what's going to serve the common good. And that's what we try to do at Ehana Kako. Every week, we interview movers and shakers, people in government, business, and other sectors of society to talk about how to create together a better government, economy, a better world here in Hawaii that can bless the rest of the world. I thank you for your attention to ThinkTech Hawaii, and we look forward to seeing you every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. We're Ehana Kako, and we wish you well. Aloha.
Aloha, welcome back to Think Tech Asia. I'm your host, Keith Bettinger, and joining me today is Dr. Wilmar Salim from the Bandung Institute of Technology in Indonesia. And today we're discussing the election of Joko Widodo as president of Indonesia and the significance of this election for Indonesian politics, but also for Indonesia in the global setting as well. So we'll continue where we left off, where we're talking about the election of Jokowi, and how this is a remarkable election because it's only Indonesia's third popularly elected presidential election. And this is his first term, his first 5-year term that he's been elected to. So his predecessor, SBA, or Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, served as president for about 10 years. You have 2 terms that can be served, just like in the United States, but in Indonesia the terms are 5 years instead of 4. So Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono served as president, and he was Indonesia's first directly elected president in the recent era.
Yes.
He served for 10 years, and many people might not be aware that he's, as he's known, many people might not be aware that he's Indonesia's first democratically elected president in decades. Can you tell us a little bit about why SBA's Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono's election was so momentous, and what happened before him? How was a president chosen before direct election, especially before the parliamentary era?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, this is a different system than what we had in the past. You know, since the first election that we held after independence, it was in 1955. Indonesians citizens only elect their member of parliament, and then the member of parliament elect the president. So what we used to call it as indirect democracy or indirect election of the president. Yeah, things has changed after the fall of Suharto, the president before, well, the second president of Indonesia in 1998, then there's some political reform
Right.
which took place, and including about the election system. And one of the thing that was decided at that time was that to limit the term of presidency up to 2 terms of 5 years each. So Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, which was first elected in 2004, he ran again in 2009, and he's not allowed to run again in 2014. So in the past, there's no such system. Our first president, Sukarno, he was put as president for life, and then after that, then Suharto, our second president, he ruled the country for 32 years.
32 years.
So he was indirectly, democratically elected by the member of parliament for 6 times, actually.
In theory, right?
Yes, in theory. So, which is different with what we have now, and it is very revolutionary in terms of governance, because what happened is as soon as we have the direct election, or that's what we call it as the popular election of the president, it was followed by the election of all provincial governors and district and city mayors. So now we have 500 elected officials, from the top, the president, all the way to the mayors.
Wow. So over the past 15 years, 16 years, since 1998, Indonesia has essentially undergone a revolution in governance from top-down authoritarian rule to free and fair democracy and popular elections and universal sovereignty. Now that's a really remarkable transformation, and it's particularly remarkable when you realize that Indonesia's elections are widely lauded and hailed as free and fair, and the role of corruption, there's always corruption in elections, but in Indonesia, international monitors have said that the elections are fair and transparent and open. So in 15 years, there's been a very remarkable transformation there. So SBA, or Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, Widodo's predecessor, was an important military general under the Suharto regime. So he has ties to this old authoritarian order. So even though he was democratically elected in an election widely lauded as fair and free, he wasn't a complete break from the old authoritarian past. Now, however, Joko Widodo, who, even though he served as mayor of Jakarta and Solo, he doesn't really have a strong political pedigree or a background, and his family in particular does not. He's not from the elite. He had to work, in fact, while he was in primary school just to make enough money to go to school. He worked as in the furniture business before going into politics. So Jokowi has essentially emerged out of nowhere. So can you tell us how Jokowi is able to rise from essentially nothing to become president of Indonesia? How did he become so popular, and why do Indonesians like him so much?
Well, as you mentioned, so he was a businessman. He sells furniture and then export furniture.
Right.
And then somehow after 2004, after we have changed the election system, he ran for mayor of Surakarta. This is a medium-sized city in Central Java province,
Also known as
in
Solo,
Java, which is known as Solo. It's like,
yes.
so he ran for that position, and then he has like very unusual approach to development. So he would sit down for hours in many meetings with citizens and city stakeholders in order to get consensus to solve city problems. So one of the notorious example that he had done is that he managed to move street vendors, instead of opening their business on the sidewalks, to a market without any resistance. After spending hours
of such a big deal in Solo?
Well, because what the practice of governance in the past, it used to be top down, when the mayor or the governor said something, and then the police or civil defense will clear that area instead of talking to the businessman, the street vendor. like himself talking.
So just
it's
what
like
you
more
might
and more.
expect from an authoritarian regime.
Yes,
At every
yes.
level,
Yeah.
it's absolute
It used to be
power
like that. So
being
and then he
exercised.
changed that, and then of course there's a role of social media. People see how he's done business, how he solved problem in his cities, and he has become popular. So he was re-elected as a mayor of Solo in 2010, and then 2 years and the second term of the mayor of Solo, there's a position open for the governor of Jakarta, which is our Indonesian, our capital city. And then he was nominated by his political party to run for that position. And then he got a lot of support from citizens of Jakarta. So then he got elected in 2012. And then 2 years later, we have the presidential election. And then, as mentioned, SBY is not allowed to run for the third term. So we're looking for new person. And then, because of his popularity with that, what do you call it? The approach that he used to meet these people on the street as walkabouts, blusuan in Javanese term we call it. He became so popular.
So he's seen as a progressive, kind of a man of the people, of humble origins, and with an open ear. So he pays attention to all the stakeholders, and he seeks consensus. And these things, I think, I think it's fair to say that they appeal to Indonesians, just because Indonesians in general have a sense of community, and so this is more of a governed by consensus than governed by fiat or governed by just the sheer exercise of power. Now, I want to go back to what you said about how Jokowi went from Solo or Surakarta to Jakarta, because this is interesting to me. Solo is about, what would you say, 600 kilometers away from Jakarta?
Yeah.
So 600 kilometers is roughly 350, 360 miles. So it's pretty far away. Now, Jokowi was born in Solo. That's his home turf. And so it's interesting to me how he could get, he's not from Jakarta, but he's elected mayor of Jakarta. And it reminds me of how Hillary Clinton, who is from Arkansas, became senator from New York. And it's a very political move and maneuver for that to happen. And obviously that was a stepping stone for her. And so I think when Jokowi was chosen, or when he was tapped to become mayor of Jakarta, that was seen as a stepping stone, and everybody knew what the next likely step was going to be. So can you explain a little bit how it's possible for Jokowi, and acceptable to the citizens of Indonesia and of Jakarta, for Jokowi to go from Solo to become the governor of Jakarta? And again, I want to say that, add that we call him the governor of Jakarta rather than the mayor, just because of the administrative setup of Jakarta. It's a province rather than a city. So Jokowi, instead of being the mayor of Jakarta, he's the governor of Jakarta. But how could that happen?
Yeah, well, basically Jakarta, you know, it's like it's a mega city. It's a more than 10 million population. So it's diverse, and it's like a melting pot. There's no political majority in Jakarta itself, and then there is no people majority from one background only, like only Javanese who live in Jakarta, or so it's like a melting pot, and people see how Jokowi is different with other mayor, and especially with the other candidate that ran for the governor of Jakarta at that time. So he's more acceptable, especially to the working class, because of his humble upbringing, and then how he works so hard, and then he goes to people and listen to what is their problem. So
regardless of where he's from, he represents a major break from the past, and people relate to him. Okay, thank you, Wilmar. We're going to take another break here. I really appreciate you joining me today. This is ThinkTech. We'll be back in just a moment.
Aloha, I'm Hunter Hevlin, host of Sustainable Hawaii here at ThinkTech Hawaii. You can tune in every week on Thursday at 2 p.m. to see interviews with sustainability professionals from around the state and even further abroad, learning about activities with water management, food security, waste management, and a whole host of other fascinating opportunities to get engaged with making a greener island. So if you're interested in making the transition from consuming individuals to communities of producers, check us out every Thursday. Aloha.
Okay. Okay, welcome back to ThinkTech Asia. I'm your host, Keith Bettinger, and again, today we're talking about the recent election in Indonesia of Joko Widodo as president, and I'm joined today by Dr. Wilmar Salim from the Bandung Institute of Technology. Thank you, Wilmar. This is our final segment, so we're going to wrap things up here in just a moment. But do you think, we've been talking about how revolutionary it is, how much of a break with the past the election of Jokowi is. Now, my question to you is, a big critique of Indonesia in the era of democratization. So Indonesia has come a long way, but in many places it seems that that many of the old elites of the authoritarian regime have been able to work their way back into government because they're the most influential, they have the most financial resources. Now, Jokowi definitely is not among the old elite. So my next question is the election of Jokowi an isolated phenomenon, or do you think that this is a sign of things to come in other places in Indonesia? Are there other promising young, charismatic leaders emerging? Is there a sort of Jokowi effect in Indonesia?
Well, actually, this election is interesting. I would say that actually the rise of Jokowi becoming a president, it's because we have changed the election system to popular system, popular election, instead of like the parliamentary election. This is the reason why we have many governors and mayors, good governors and mayors elected popularly by their own citizen. And then this gives a chance for this local mayor and governor, maybe from Eastern Indonesia, someday prove that they are able to work effectively and deliver to the people and get a chance to become a president. So this is what
the people is actually being represented.
So what Jokowi's election shows us actually somebody we never heard of his name 10 years ago. Right. So this is like somebody from nothing, nobody, become a president. It opens up many possibilities for many Indonesians. You know, who never thought of who could be a minister, who could be a mayor and governor. If you're if you can prove that you can work and deliver to the people, then you can be elected.
Wow. Yeah, it's really an exciting time for Indonesia. It's very promising for the future as well. Especially, there were some bumps in the road when Suharto, the old authoritarian ruler, was overthrown. But Indonesia has come a long way. Looking into the future of Jokowi's first 5 years, he was just inaugurated, so he's brand new. And in the United States, they talk about the first 100 days of the presidential election, and those are the most important days. In terms of Jokowi's first 100 days, and also in terms of challenges and potential stumbling blocks, what do you see in store for him in the future?
Well, okay. First of all, this 2014 election is interesting also because there were only two candidates that ran. One represent the working class, Joko Widodo, and the other one represent the old elite, which is also General Prabowo Subianto, which is related to the past, to Suharto regime. And actually, political parties that support Prabowo Subianto have the majority in the parliament.
Wow.
So even though from the first day Jokowi was inaugurated, he has great challenge from the parliament because the political party that support him is only minority in the parliament.
So would you say that's analogous to in the United States? The news is that the Republicans have taken over Congress.
Yes.
So is that an analogous situation with the president being one party?
Yeah, he's gonna face the same situation. Whenever you want to pass a regulation or law, or even if you want to pass a budget for your government, then it will be blocked. There will be some blocks in the parliament. So that's what we expect.
So, what can Jokowi do to overcome that?
Well, his strength again is how he's so patient and perseverance in getting a consensus.
I see.
So he's willing to spend hours to meet different people, which is on the opposite side of the table, in order to get a consensus. So I believe that he will be able to build that consensus with the opponent in the parliament.
So he's a negotiator. He's a
He's
consensus
he's a
builder.
very good negotiator. Yes,
Right.
I think so.
Well, that's great, Wilmar. Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Today we're going to have we're going to cut the interview short. I know traditionally on this program the interview has lasted the entire program, but today I'd like to start a new program feature called, and we're tentatively going to call this the Cultural Corner until we come up with a catchier name for it. But the idea here is to end the program with by highlighting some aspect of an Asian culture through performance each week. So today's clip is in honor of our guest Wilmar, or Dr. Salim, who comes from the Minangkabau cultural group of Indonesia. The Minangkabau are the second largest ethnicity on the large island of Sumatra, which is incidentally where I did my dissertation research. And they are concentrated in the province of West Sumatra. The Minang culture is very rich, and it's been extremely influential throughout Indonesia and Malaysia. One of the founding fathers of modern Indonesia was a Minang himself. That was Dr. Hatta.
Yes.
Today's clip is of a randai performance put on by the University of Hawaii Theater Program in 2012. Now, randai is a folk theater tradition in the Minangkabau ethnic group, which incorporates music and dance and singing and drama and the martial art of silat. It's usually performed for traditional ceremonies and for festivals, and sometimes the stories told can span several evenings. So the performance that we're just going to see a small clip. We're not going to watch several evenings worth of randai. We'll just watch a few minutes. But this particular performance that we're going to show today is from a randai performance called the Gentile Sabai. And it tells a story of a beautiful young woman that one day catches the eye of the king. And the king becomes obsessed and entranced by her beauty and decides that he wants to marry her. But unfortunately, as in so many tales, she's already engaged and pledged to another. And so when the king proposes to her family, the proposal is rejected. And so the Gentile Sabai tells the story of what happens and the king's rage at the family and how that plays out. So without further ado, this is our clip. Thank you for joining us at ThinkTech Asia. We'll be back next week. And again, you can reach me via email at keiththinktech@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, Wilmar, and thank you to the crew here at ThinkTech.